Hey, what's up, everyone? Ben Spicer joined here by Michael Langston. We're going to talk a little FSU football recruiting here on Warchant TV today. You haven't heard of us from a couple days. Well, actually, you have yesterday because we had some surprise news kind of came out of nowhere. But other than that, it's been a little while. I feel like Michael.
Yeah, it has. I'm glad to be back doing a few more things. Obviously, big news of getting Malik Clark, four-star wide receiver. Big news for FSU because we weren't expecting that. But one thing we are expecting is the Seminole Showcase. So
Yeah,
we got a lot to go over that. I'll just kind of give people a layout of that. Basically, you'll have kids arrive tomorrow, or I should say Friday at some point. They'll get there, and probably Friday and Saturday morning they'll do a lot of visits, and then later in the day, probably in the afternoon, I would think they'll probably do some activities, and then to finish it off, they'll have a small little camp. Usually lasts about an hour. Just where kids can compete against each other. So it's mainly more so a visit of showing what the brand is at FSU, but also, being around the players, being around the people, being around the coaches, so they can get a feel for kind of what the way the programs run. And if they haven't, that's why a lot of these guys, if you see some of them, they're visitors that haven't maybe saw a detailed look at FSU. So I think that's why a lot of them are, I think, 2026 kids. There'll be some probably 2025 guys that I haven't listed. I haven't got the official list, I guess you should say, for everything. But I think there'll be probably be some additions that maybe we didn't have, but they'll be there. But we'll keep an eye out for them. But that's kind of just a general layout of kind of what to expect for this weekend of the Seminole Showcase.
we don't want to go through every visitor that's on the list because we'll be here for a while, but
Yeah.
we'll spotlight some. And one that stood out to me that I want to kind of get your feedback and thoughts on is, of course, Tramel Jones, who about a
Hmm.
month or so ago announced he was locked in with Florida State and shutting down his recruitment. He's going to be there, so he'll be putting on his recruiting hat, I would
Yeah.
imagine, Michael.
Yeah.
What does that
Yeah.
kind of do not only for the 2025 class, but the 2026 class as well, having him there?
Always having always having your guy, and I always say the quarterback's the leader of the class. I don't care who it is. It's just they dictate so much in the class. So having the guy that committed early in four-star, Terrell Jones, Brady Smigel is going to be there as well. Smigel, I guess I want to make sure I got the name right and said it right, but he's also going to be there. So you're having your 2026 guy and your 2025 guy there. I think it's a big deal because it kind of gives you extra juice to guys that are considering FSU. They can really give the ins and outs. The quarterbacks go through so much when it comes to evaluations of each school, and when they look at, so they can give you the ins and outs. And like I said, everyone views the quarterback as kind of the leader of the class, whether they want to be or not. That's the way it's going to be. So I think having both those guys there, it's a major. It gives you some major juice for the weekend.
Beyond those guys, who are some names maybe that jump out off the page to you that are going to be there?
Well, I think another big one is CJ Wiley because a lot of people, he's supposed to be there, four-star wide receiver out of Georgia. He was supposed to, it's another one of those surprises. I mean, Dugan's killing it with these
Yeah.
surprise commits, but he's a guy that he even said to me, after he committed, that, hey, this has been kind of the school that I've been locked in on. Even I think a lot of people just assume that Georgia because he's from, plays in the state of Georgia, but he's going to be there. So having him there with Tramel, I think is a big deal. I think it's having him there around other talented, whether they're 2026 or 2025 guys. That's a big deal to have him automatically come back for that weekend. I thought that was really big. Obviously, the big name I'm keeping an eye on is Usman Chroma, running back out of Lee County. He's expected to be there, but hey, you never know. Until they get there, you won't feel like totally comfortable. But he's supposed to be there sometime this weekend. I don't know if it's going to be Friday or Saturday, but he's expected, from what I was told, that he's likely to be there. So I think those are kind of some of the main ones for 2025. Then you get into 2026. There's a lot of talented guys. Tristan Keys, 2026 four-star wide receiver. Ellis Koch is another one. Ryan Snyder from the Penn State site kind of hit me up and said, "Hey, he's supposed to be there." That might likely be a Sunday visit. but he's supposed to be there. Caden Finley is another one that I like a lot, kind of a wide receiver slash tight end that I know Chris Thompson's heavily involved with that recruitment. He's another 4-star. So you have a lot of talented guys, and then you got some guys in the trenches. Darius Gray, another 4-star. Evan Goodman, another 4-star. Defensive end Jairus Rogers. So those are some of the few that'll be there. I think linebacker from the 2025 class, Ty Jackson, could be there this weekend, but I haven't got a definitive kind of for sure that he'll be there. But I think those are some of the guys. People can go through the full list on the boards if they want to, but I think those are some of the highlighted guys that I expect to be there, and I expect to be. Just because it's not on that list, guys, doesn't mean they're going to be. I mean, the list is probably going to expand pretty. I think there's going to be more on there than what I have. So I wouldn't kind of get locked in on just those listed guys. I think there's going to be more in there. We saw that last year with FSU when they did this Seminole Showcase. It's the same thing where we had a list of guys, and then there's sometimes there's like 6 to 8 guys that are more than what we had. So I would just prepare just to have new names on there. But I think overall it's an event that I think I said this to Tom Lang the other night that it's an event that they really want to create buzz going into that game in Dublin. So the excitement's there. People know and generate just what the vibe and the situation with FSU and what they're doing. So I think that's why this event is always a big deal to the FSU staff.
You kind of touched on it a little bit there, but I'm curious. It's got the fancy name, Seminole Showcase. So, how does this maybe differ from a recruiting weekend in March or April? What's the biggest difference? And I know some people have kind of asked, is this an elite camp or what's it really going to be like?
It's more of a connection relationship type of event. You can almost look at it as like a cookout type thing where the camp itself is more of an afterthought, although it's kind of the climax of the whole thing of kind of the finishing you know for the show. But I think overall it's more so a almost like a junior day with a camp.
Mm.
That's kind of the best wording I could do it. Whereas elite camps are more, what the camp is. Guys are going there. It's about competing at that camp and going against each other, and that's important too for the showcase. But I think it's more so in a camp feel, where this is more you highlight you talking about guys that are visiting for 2 days on this type of event where they can get a feel for everything, and then hey, if I want to compete, I can compete. So I think it's more of a relationship type of thing, more like a junior day, like with a camp. Like I said, I think that's kind of the way I view the showcase compared to the elite camp, where that's just like one day of elite camp, and you might get a kid to take a visit, but you really don't hear kids elaborate a ton about what they did on the visits. More so what I did with this coach, what I did with
Yeah.
that coach, what I think of Coach Norvell, what I think of whatever coach I'm around. It's more about the camp itself, more compared to this thing's more about the event itself.
Well, we have the list of expected visitors on the premium recruiting board. You can maybe expect some changes to that in the next 24 hours. So
Yeah.
make sure you head over to warchant.com and make sure you like this video on the way out. If you enjoyed our FSU recruiting coverage, be sure to subscribe to the channel. We'll be back with more videos coming up this weekend. For Michael Langston, I am Ben Spicer. Thanks for joining us here on Warchant TV.